Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In the first story, we discuss why people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers. A reference to a popular TV show, and a happy ending awaits you. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Giant Golden Archway. Back in 2010, I got a job working for a company that has an unofficial food item where you put $1 menu sandwich into another. I worked there for a year and a half. During that time, I learned everything. I could open, close, work the grill very well, and work front counter and drive-thru as well, if not better than most that work there on a consistent basis. I'd been promised a review when I was hired that was to take place after 6 months of being there. Being the kind of employee that wants to move up in the company, I never pushed the issue, but instead kept pushing to learn everything I could so that when I did get my review, I'd get a good one. In my time there, I was called off once because I was recovering from an emergency surgery to get rid of a pilonidal cyst that had ruptured. On the same token, I was always the first to volunteer to pick up a shift if it didn't interfere with my college classes. After being there a year and a half, they announced everyone would be getting a review. My general manager came to me and told me the time she wanted to schedule me for my raise. I told her at that time that I'd be needing a quarter raise, $10 a week, in order to make it so I could sustain working there while going to college. She said she understood. When my review came, I was floored. Despite all the work I'd put in and the energy I'd poured into my job hoping to reach management while going to college, she assessed me as a meets expectations employee. I don't mean to sound cocky, but I knew my own value as an employee. I knew I more than exceeded expectations of an employee of that company, and I said as much. She tried to claim it was based on the consensus of the other managers, but I knew myself to be a favorite employee of every manager but her. She then told me that she'd be giving me a 15-cent raise. I told her I'd requested a quarter, and she said that 15 cents was the best she could do. The wheels turned in my head, and I knew that I was undervalued by her. I'd never have a chance to move up, so I told her I'd be putting in my 2 weeks' notice. She looked at me as if I'd slapped her and said, "You're leaving over 10 cents?" I looked her right in the eyes and said, "No, you're losing a fully cross-trained employee that loves her job over 10 cents. Then I stood up and walked out to my car. I did write out a 2 weeks' notice and immediately began looking for work. During my search, when she worked with me, she'd frequently tell me how someone of my experience couldn't hope to get a job making the $8 I'd requested of them. Well, I did, and then some. I applied to a gas station and was to work their overnight kitchen, making $12 an hour if I got the job. I called literally every day until I got an interview. I had my interview the night of my last call and was given the job on the spot. With 5 days left on my notice, I informed her that I'd gotten the job, where I'd gotten it, and how much I'd be making. If looks could kill, I'd have never been able to start at my other job because of the dirt I'd be buried under. To get back at me, she wanted one thing I treasured the most. As an employee working for that company, they give you pens you could put in your hat to show your accomplishments. In a year and a half, I'd earned over 30 pens, and I was proud of them. I considered them a collection. She told me that after my last shift, I'd have to return my uniforms and all of my pens. I claimed the pens were mine as payment for things I'd done, but she told me she'd make sure I'd be docked the cost of the pens out of my last paycheck if I didn't return them. She did it. Despite everything I'd worked for to turn this in my favor, she got under my skin, so I decided to get her back. Not wanting to completely burn a bridge, I came up with an idea I can confidently say was my own, but had been done before on some shows I'd never seen at the time. I decided to suspend them in jello. The night before my last shift, I cooked up a large bowl of jello. Before putting it in the fridge, I tied strings around my pens and suspended them at various points throughout the bowl by taping the string ends to the outside of the bowl. I let it cool overnight. After I finished my last shift, I told my manager I was running home to get my uniforms and pens. I returned a half hour later with my jello overturned onto a plate. I'll always miss you, plate. Then I put the uniforms on the floor next to her desk and, looking her dead in the eye, placed the jello on her desk and said, "Here's your pens." I walked out without waiting for a response and decided never to go there again. My roommate, who also worked there, told me that it was all her coworkers could talk about all day. I was at least able to take some satisfaction in the fact that maybe I would inspire some other shenanigans from my coworkers if they too decided that company was not for them. As a reminder, people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers. And our second story. Memorial Day shenanigans. It's Memorial Day coming Monday, which means a 3-day weekend for me and my coworkers. As typical, many of us have made plans for those 3 days involving family, trips, and barbecuing. So yesterday, Tuesday, management comes to us and asks us to come in that weekend to do some extra work. No one is particularly happy to hear this since the extra work only exists because of management's screw-ups. Management states that they're aware that many of us have plans this weekend, so if we could just let them know who's available to work, that'd be great. It being only Tuesday and my being at work where management doesn't want us playing on our phones, I resolved to talk to my family about my working part of the weekend. I'm not terribly eager, but they're offering a bonus to those who come in. A few hours later, a manager starts going desk to desk confirming who'll be working that weekend. I mentioned that I haven't had a chance yet to talk to my family about rearranging our plans. The manager's response was, "Well, we really need to know now." I shrug. "Okay, then no, I can't come in. My family has plans." The manager tries backpedaling, asking if I could check with my family first, but nope, I'm not going to be bullied or guilted into fixing the mess that management created in the first place. You cannot have another bank card. I was in a co-op program at my university. The National Bank on campus, a somewhat isolated campus due to the agricultural programs it offered, also has branches in the city near where I was doing my co-op work terms. This was long ago when ATMs were newish. Let's call it last century. I withdrew some money from my bank card in the evening. Then the next day I wanted to get more, so I used the ATM at lunch. Instead of getting cash, the machine retained my card, and ended the transaction. I went into the branch to see what could be done. Me. The ATM just took my card. Teller. I'm sorry, sir. That was nice. I was pretty young. Do you know your account number? Me. Yes, I do. I had a checkbook with me. Here it is. Teller types and looks at the screen. I'm sorry, sir. You exceeded the withdrawal limit of your account. Me. $40 yesterday and today is too much? Yes, sir. Can I have my card back? No, sir. Your account can no longer be linked to the card because of the limit violation. I'm an ATM criminal. But I don't have an overdraft. I'm not even close. You can see the balance, right? I'm sorry, sir, but that's the bank's policy. I'd like to speak to a manager. I know, jerk move, but it's my money. Teller takes me to a manager. Manager. Teller tells me you had a bit of trouble with our ATM. That's right. I'd like a new card for my account. I'm sorry, the bank's policy is not to trust people that don't follow the rules. We can't issue you a new card ever again. It's still my money, right? Of course, sir. I want to close my account. Here, let's go have the teller take care of that for you. Teller goes through all the work to close my account and give me cash. Thank you very much. Now, I understand that new accounts get a bank card, is that right? Teller. Yes, sir. You get a card and pen as soon as you open an account. You even get some table checks to start you off while your order is being printed. I'd like to open an account and get a bank card for it, please. I complied with their rules and ended up getting exactly what I started with. Alas, the poor teller was the one that had to do all the work, but no way was I going to pay out of system fees to use their ATMs on campus if I'd gone to a different bank. And our last story. Entitled neighbor gets what he deserves. So this all started after my family moved out to the country in my state. I'm 19 now, and this took place around my early teens. So there will be parts that I misremember. One of the two side neighbors we had moved a couple of semis on his land. My stepfather, who was kicked out not long after for cheating a second time, decided to ask around about this neighbor. I myself had only seen this neighbor once or twice. I don't remember how this information came about, but after a few incidents where this mysterious neighbor kept trying to subtly tell us the stream towards the back of the property was his, we found out he was not even supposed to be living on his property because of some charges a time before. Unfortunately, nothing much came from this other than some passive-aggressive moves of my parents taking out the property flags he'd put on our property, and then he put them back. The second part began a couple of years back, around my junior or senior year in high school. This is when this neighbor gets a name, as this time we were actually using his name other than calling him that neighbor. For this, we'll call him DF, for D-Face. Some background is that my mother had kicked out my stepfather for various reasons. By this time, she was in a relationship who was a lot better and less toxic and who I did enjoy hanging out with most of the time. Back to the story. What had kicked this off is that we found out that DF was planning on getting a herd of horses to raise/sell on his property. How we found out was that DF had commissioned my mother's boyfriend to put up a fence around his property for said horses. He tells DF that he will for a certain amount of money and then gets to work. He managed to put up about 3/4 of the fence before winter moved in and he had to quit for the season. DF, however, decided this was enough fence. He put, I believe, 20 horses on this lot. Keep in mind that we have about the same amount of land, if not more, and if we had gotten horses, would probably only be enough land to house 2 horses comfortably. He tried to not pay at first because the job wasn't done. When my mom's boyfriend made sure that DF knew that wasn't going to fly, DF then tried to short him and fired him. Unfortunately, this time my mom's boyfriend just let it go as he wasn't going to get any further with DF. Lo and behold, a ton of horses got out not long after because the fence wasn't done. They were getting into the streets and our land. They didn't hurt anything, but were kind of annoying. The big thing about this was it was the middle of winter, and DF put out 1 bale of hay for 20 horses. There was a mini pond between our land as well, which fed the stream mentioned above. He decided that this would be enough to keep them hydrated, but then didn't break the ice when it froze over. My mom's boyfriend, a great friend to animals, decided he wasn't going to let those horses starve/dehydrate and started leaving out extra food and water for them. Now, this all happened this year where it all came to a head. This was a time where he had put like 30 more horses on his property and stopped caring for them again. After seeing these horses begin to starve, my mom began working with the DA to form a case against DF. She took pictures of the horses, videos whenever the fire department had to pull horses out of the now muddy pond, and pictures of no food on the property. We'd already called the popo so much on this guy that they were telling us to stop calling and that the horses are fine. We were all PO'd about this. I still believe that the police were covering up their own butts on this and that the vet was effing bullcrapping the reports that the horses were fine. Finally, after gathering all the evidence, the DA moved to press charges against him. In the meantime, my mom was also working with an animal rescue lady who helped take the horses away to get better homes. DF tried to defend himself, saying that the horses were fine and my mom had no right to help those horses get taken away, blah, blah, blah. This is the first time that we actually hear from DF's girlfriend, going off on my mom on Facebook for what she did and how horrible we were. I was told this by my mother because I may be on Facebook once a month. I only recently found out that he was finally charged, 2 counts of animal cruelty, and DF got 3 years probation and 2 months in jail. While it wasn't the best ending, I do feel happy that he was put in his place. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.